Let me officially welcome you to the Cooperative Development Foundation's third annual Cooperative Issues Forum. Many of you know that my name is Gap Kovac, and I chair the board of directors of the CDF organization, and I am sincerely delighted that each and every one of you are with us this afternoon. You know that CDF is a 501c3 organization, and our mission is to raise public understanding and awareness about the cooperative business model, and that's exactly why we're here this afternoon. We've assembled a marvelous program that should, I hope, give you all a new perspective on the role of cooperatives and how they influence and interact with all of the aspects of our lives, our communities, and our economy. As you'll learn today, the cooperative community is already engaged and serving as a catalyst for initiatives that are achieving amazing results and changing our definition of community. In some cases, it's been about creating a local cooperative economy. In others, it's been about collaboration around problem solving, where community partners have come together to realize and recognize the relevance of the cooperative business model to growing local economies and solving some of their most challenging social and economic problems. I know you'll find this to be an interesting discussion. We also want to encourage you, as we've done in past sessions, to participate in the process, not just by sitting there and absorbing by osmosis, but rather by formulating your questions, your observations, your opinions, your feedback to what you hear this afternoon. So we have conveniently placed two microphones on either side of the audience, and if you would, during the presentations, if you'll simply jot down your questions, your notes, your reminders, so that when we get to the end of the process, you'll remember what you wished you would have been able to ask had you remembered the question. You'll have it there in front of you. I do have to remind you that there's one housekeeping detail for which I'm going to be ultimately responsible, and that's to get you out of here no later than 5:30. Once we break, we'll encourage you to join us down the hall for beverages and further conversation, but I would remind you that tonight this ballroom is being used for the Cooperative Hall of Fame dinner and induction ceremony, and we need to give the press club staff adequate time to set up all the tables, all the accoutrements that go along with the food service and the program tonight. As you can see, we've already hung the banners broadcasting the names of this evening's banquet sponsors, but the staff does have a lot more work to do. So please, when I say 5:30, adios down the hall. With that semi-formal backdrop, let's begin with some broad stage setting and big picture comments. And for that responsibility, I would turn to Mike Bell. As many of you know, Mike Bell is the new president and CEO of the National Cooperative Business Association. NCBA is in the business of creating connections across all cooperative sectors, so there is nobody better situated to initiate this conversation than Big Picture Mike. So I yield the podium to Mike. Thank you.
Wow, you're so quiet. What is this? Okay, I have a question for you to start off. Do you love your co-op? Yes. Okay, that was pathetic. I'm going to ask the question again. Do you love your co-op? Yes. Okay, that's actually moderately better. It is the afternoon. Yes, you do. And you know, I think that's the difference. That's a core difference to cooperatives and the role they play. They are businesses, but people actually express love for them. They have the ability to unite folks. We are collaborators, and that's really the topic on hand today. And I really do think it's the role of the National Cooperative Business Association is to be a uniter of all of the sectors. Because I've described this to folks that I look at cooperatives as a universe. And I've spent most of my time in the universe in the credit union solar system, where we have our own language. We established that today, actually, at our board meeting. When I say things sometimes and I look at 20 other people in the room and they don't know what I'm saying, I realize I'm talking credit unionese, and they're speaking other languages. But all of these solar systems exist in a universe, and we all come back from the same DNA. We all have the same core belief in cooperative principles. And we put those cooperative principles to work every day in the best way we can at NCBA, which is to try to drive lots of collaboration and work among the sectors. Our name, National Cooperative Business Association, is also a collaboration of the words cooperative and business. And those two entities interact in lots of ways we have lots of viewpoints on how all that interrelates. And this panel is going to talk a lot about that today. And they get to do it from nice comfy chairs while I'll be standing up here for the next few minutes, which I think is to tell me to keep my remarks short. So what I will tell you is 2012 really was a year where we saw collaboration come together in the International Year of the Cooperative. And that UN designation was a great start to really perhaps a global recognition of the role of cooperatives, but perhaps it didn't do us justice. And the trend then has been to really look at the coming decade of the cooperatives. And the blueprint for that decade has been produced by ICA. And we're very interested at NCBA on it. We're looking at our own strategic efforts and how to pull all of the things that we're working on together and collaborate with that document. And if you haven't seen the blueprint, I encourage you to take a look at it. It is a really very innovative and interesting way to look at things. I want to give you actually a quote from Hillary Clinton. She recently, or earlier late last year rather, visited one of our projects. And her quote, although about an international effort, I think really says something about cooperatives in the U.S. And Hillary Clinton said, "I was so impressed by the role that cooperatives have in creating economic opportunity and transforming the lives of people in the rural districts. Projects like the one that she was seeing reflect the model of partnership that the United States is pursuing. These are partnerships rooted in our shared values that deliver concrete benefits to people and that can help countries become stronger and more capable over time so they too can play a role in solving regional and global challenges." I think that's the type of collaboration that we're talking about. Our collaboration has its challenges, however. And in the challenges that we face, NCBA is going to be working with all of the sectors to make sure that we meet the challenges head on. One of the challenges that we're facing right now is government policy in terms of just making sure folks understand what a cooperative is. When you're turning to SBA and they're not sure whether a food co-op should be able to get a loan from SBA because they can't quite determine how many people should sign on to the loan, that's a problem. When FEMA can't determine that the common areas of a housing cooperative have to be fixed in order for people to go back in and live in it, just as a house owned individually by a person needs that same support, then we also have government not quite understanding the cooperative principles and how cooperatives work. The House Ways and Means Committee just this week, in its look at tax reform, has mentioned cooperatives 12 times and our friends in credit unions 26 times. Cooperatives are giving back to the American consumer huge amounts of value and benefit. And our argument at NCBA is going to be that every time there is an opportunity for preferential tax treatment, that the government needs to look very carefully at what it does, because that is value that goes directly back to member owners. That's value that goes directly back to consumers, and we have to be very much ready to stand and defend that. So that is an important role that each sector can play. We all ought to stand together, and there's nothing that brings cooperators together, because we always cooperate, don't we? Nothing brings us together, I think, better than a challenge or a threat, and that's one of the ones that we certainly face. I do want to take a moment to remind you of the National Co-op Business Association, what we do. We are a trade association for cooperatives, and we're representing and trying to bring together all of the sectors, and that is a big job. We're also an NGO, a non-governmental organization. We're doing development projects in Africa and Asia and the Caribbean, and we're looking at ways to take the knowledge and resource that we've developed overseas and be able to bring it home here domestically. And we're also a domestic development organization working to provide resources to all types of cooperatives across the country. I want to take a minute beyond advocacy to talk about where we're going at NCBA in terms of collaboration. We're looking at what's going on locally. NCBA has traditionally been a very DC-centric organization. I was born in the District of Columbia, and I was led to believe that all cogent thought actually occurred or started inside of the Beltway in DC, but my friends in other places tell me differently. So we're also doing that same sort of thinking. Our board, our diverse board, is from all over the country, and we're looking at making NCBA less DC-centric. We certainly do want to play that advocacy role that's important, but we want better connectivity to local issues. And we're asking questions like, how can we improve membership development at the co-op level and at a regional level? How can we help increase the bottom lines for each co-op? And profitability is not a bad thing for us to talk about. I think all co-ops need to look at their profitability and decide how they're giving that back to their members. Some will need more in terms of the reserves they set aside. Some will want to give more back. It depends on your business plan and where you're headed. We also need to look at increasing consumer awareness of co-ops individually and as a group. I think what I find sometimes the further I'm out into the world and talking about cooperatives is that most consumers have their one perception of how they think of cooperatives. So you say a cooperative and they say, oh, my local food co-op, and they talk to you about that. And then you say to them, well, what about an electric co-op? And they say, oh, yeah, is that the same kind of thing? So they really don't always understand from one to the other that that DNA is common between different types of co-ops. And so I think we need to look at getting consumers to take a look at truly becoming a co-op nation. I'm borrowing that from Congresswoman Joanne Emerson. I hear she's out talking a lot on the co-op nation, and I agree with her. We need folks to be working towards a more cooperative approach to where they live, what they eat, what they buy, where they bank, all of those sorts of things, the electricity they get. So we are looking at NCBA at working much more in a domestic sense in a local area. We've been working with the co-ops in Austin as a pilot. They have a group, the Austin Think Tank, that has been working on a volunteer basis and has been working to try to figure out how to solve those issues of improving the number of members, improving the bottom line, improving consumer awareness. And they've told us, we can't go much further forward with an all-volunteer group. So we're looking at trying to find the right resources to be able to help them evolve to what they're calling the Austin Cooperative Business Association. Really, in a sense, a chamber of commerce for cooperative businesses, because we don't think consumers and local governments are really looking at cooperatives and amalgamating them, seeing the collaboration among them. So we think that's an important next step of what we do, and that function as a local cooperative chamber of commerce then also separates them in that sense from a for-profit chamber of commerce that may have some different views and different ideas, but it's also very much aligned with the local movement. You see that in Austin and a lot of other places. We've talked to a number of groups. There are a number of groups like this across the country. We want to see them grow. We want to see them supported. We want to see ways that we can help them work. But we've talked to folks in Madison. Bob's going to talk a good bit about PACA. We're also looking at what's going on in Western Massachusetts in collaboration. Seattle, Pat Sterner is here. We're starting to do work with the Federation of Southern Cooperatives in the Mississippi Delta. All kinds of places like this. So that's one of the things that we're working on. In terms of where we go next as well, I want to talk that one thing that I'm consistently hearing that all cooperatives are concerned about is financing. How do they grow? And that issue is one that needs a lot of work, that we make sure that every cooperative has a great business plan and then has the ability to get good investment into it. So looking at the resources of the system, NCB, CoBank, credit unions, and others, how do we help from the trade association standpoint to make sure that all cooperatives have the resources they need to grow? We'll be working on a new website which will be much more capable of allowing you to provide input into it. The new website will allow you to post your own press releases right on it. You cut and paste, you put them in, you hit send, we glance at them. That news is going to come up on our page. We want to also be the center for cooperative job database. And I think we also ought to look at an option to be able to add where folks could come in and do volunteer work as well. So there are new things and innovations that we want. We want our footprint to be bigger based off of collaboration and based on the cross-sector news that ought to come up. And we'll be working on all of those things in the next coming months, so we want you to be watching what we do. I want to leave you with the thought that together we are certainly better. If we are not going to collaborate as effectively as we might, we will face headwinds with the challenges, with Congress, with consumers, and I think all of us have to think of new ways that we can pull our resources together. And my challenge to you is, as an individual, take a look at how you interact as a consumer in the marketplace, find a for-profit organization that you're working with, and change your own behavior to a co-op. So if you're not using a food co-op now, change that habit. If you're not banking at a credit union, change that habit. If you have a way to get involved in a worker co-op, change that. So one way that you can do that individually. I'm also challenging you, and as folks that lead organizations, find a way to collaborate with another local cooperative in some way. Go cross-sector yourselves. And know that we will be here at NCBA to work with you and help you do that.